Welcome to another Disc Golf Valley vintage production. This time we're focusing on putting practice. Let's go all the way back to version 693 and take a look at what we have. You'll see that the baskets are generic and you can see the aquatic creatures. In this case I'm using the accurate sticky crab. And other than that, the start is going to be pretty much like it is currently. You just have a few short putts to work with, and the idea is just kind of keep throwing into the center of the basket and keep building up that energy. You'll see that I have the ability to miss a putt, a 26-footer. That still haunts me today. But at least I can make the 9-footer coming in. But yeah, it's going to look pretty average at the start. Just keep making those putts. Working on the score, getting the energy +1. Up to 30 feet. Sits at 30 feet for a little while. And at that distance, it was time to change over to backhand. Nowadays, it's a lot easier to make those putts, especially if you're using a wind-accurate fuse. But back in the day, you needed the extra boost with the backhand. So I'm going to throw a few of these in. 33 feet. A nice little run. Oh, threw it too low. I jinxed myself. Gonna try that one over again. Get a little extra. You can see the chains kind of starting to get a little angry. They were very fragile back then, and if you happen to hit it just right or just wrong, you could actually cause the chain to break and it would fling around. And believe it or not, that still goes on today. And more, that's rather routine. Now, when the camera zooms in like this, all of a sudden, you are now unable to be behind the disc. So instead, you get this long distance view, and it's really, really hard. So the only time that it moves back is when you actually have a putt. And if you have a close enough putt, then it will keep you in that position. But as soon as you switch to backhand and throw it in and the camera zooms towards the basket, now you are in that long distance viewing. At this point, you just have to rely on basically muscle memory and throw to where you think it would work. You can see that it kicked out there because you don't get the depth perception. And since it was a tap in, it didn't move it close to where I could view it again. So you get these very interesting long distance kind of views of the disc. Sometimes close like that. You can see the chains starting to buckle a little bit. This is also where I wound up kind of developing the don't move the aim kind of throw, because there wasn't really any way to tell where it would go if you did adjust the aim. So you just kind of had to pull and hope. Yeah, another one in. Up to 36 now. And so because of this, the scores really weren't all that impressive on the list. But if you realize that at basically the score of about 34, 35, it started to do this particular view, you can be a little bit more impressed with the scores. A little kick out there. And anytime that a chain breaks on the basket, it's gone. it's gone for the rest of the time that you're going to be using it. So if you break a whole bunch of chains, you can eventually just wind up with basically a post that is not very good at catching discs. Oh, a little spit out. That was rude. Should have had that. And because it was a tap in, it's going to continue to be a long view and rotate around. Here's a nice laser. Long distance uphill. Ah, spit out. Tap in, so still far away. Oh, going straight at the basket. Did it stay in? Looks like it did. Pretty high shot, but looks like it's going to stay because it's a sticky crab. Tree blocking the way, but it still made it in. Alright, and 50! $62 feet. Back to that long distance view. Alright, we're skipping ahead to the final putt, and so we can take a look at the top scores. And there you go. I wound up with 64, which was good enough for third place. Can you believe that? With only a 68 by Brian and a 66 by Carolyn ahead of me. Amazing that the scores were that low. Not long after getting the 64, I went back in and had a monster putting round where I wound up getting 85. And that score stood for a fair amount of time until the actual mechanics of the camera and such were fixed, and it became a lot easier to get higher scores. So I mentioned that the chain breakage could launch the disc a long ways, and here are a few screenshots of proof of that. You can see that it goes from not too far to a ridiculous amount to eventually, when the new discs were added, I managed to do this. 25,000 feet. I really thought this was going to be my personal best and never be exceeded, but just recently, in the brand new version, I had this happen. Special shout out to Zach Owen from the Disc Golf Valley Players page on Facebook for doing the calculation, where it turns out that the particular distance is 265,000 feet. Basically, I just shot past the moon. Check out the putting practice area for yourself and see what kind of scores you can get and what kind of distances you can get with various chain breakages. This is David Salee, and until next time, I will catch you later.